Can everyone see my slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. So last class we have discussed about basics of microcontroller and microprocessor. That is basic concepts of microprocessor and microcontrollers, and number representation. That is ones complement and twos complement, and also we have discussed about the problem involved in the ones complement method, how that problem uh, will be overcome by two's complement. So next, let's revise some of the basics of your computer architecture. Okay. Actually, the internal working of every computer system can be broken down into three main components. One is CPU, second component is a memory, and third one is the peripheral. So this function of CPU may be your microprocessor or microcontroller. So the role of this component is to execute information stored in memory. So this information can be your data or instruction. And second one is the IO device. So this function of this IO device is to provide a means of communication with the CPU. And also your user, that is programmer, can interact with the CPU through this peripheral device only. And they are used for giving input or taking output from the CPU. And about memory, actually consisting of two types of memory, RAM memory and ROM. RAM is the random access memory. So this memory is used for storing temporary programs, and it is a volatile memory. So volatile memory means if the power is, that is information is not lost, that is information is, that is your data or information is lost when the power is turned off. Here ROM memory, it contains permanent programs and information. So the information is not lost when the power is turned off. It is a non-volatile memory. So the important thing is the information in ROM is a permanent. The user cannot change the information inside your ROM memory. So this is about CPU and memory and peripheral devices. And important thing is the CPU is connected to memory and IO devices through group of conducting lines. So that group of conducting line is called bus. So your CPU is connected to memory and IO through group of wire called bus. So the role of the job of bus is it is used to carry the information from one place to the another. So it will carry either address information, data information, and control information. So out of these three buses, address bus and data bus will determine the capability of your CPU. Address bus means it will carry address information. Data bus means it will carry data information. And address bus is a unidirectional one. Data bus is the bidirectional one. And control bus is used to carry control information. That is like a memory read signal, memory write signal, IO read, and IO write. Actually, in case of address bus, memory and IO device. So whatever device are connected to your CPU, so every device must be assigned with one particular address. That is, every device is associated with particular address through which address your CPU connects and initiate its data transfer. Okay. So every device is associated with one address. Using that address, your CPU will communicate with memory and peripheral devices. So address is assigned to given device must be unique. So no devices are allowed to have the same address. So here, first the process involved here is CPU puts the address on the address bus, and decoding circuit, there is external decoding circuit, finds the device. Then your CPU uses this data bus either to get the data from the device or send the data to it. So it is just for carrying the address information from CPU to external device or external device to CPU. And next one is your control bus. So it is used to provide read and write signal to the device. So that read and write signal are generated by your CPU to indicate if the CPU is asking for information or sending it information. Okay. So So here, out of 3 bus, data bus, address bus, and control bus, the data bus and address bus determines the capability of your processor. So first we will see about data bus. So more data bus means more expensive processor. The processor cost is high, and also the average size of data bus in CPU varies between 8 and 64. The minimum size is 8-bit and the maximum size is 64. So the early computers like Apple II used an 8-bit data bus, while supercomputers use 64-bit data bus. So the data bus are bidirectional, since CPU must use them either to receive or send data. So the processing power of computer is related to the size of its data bus. For example, if the data bus is 8-bit, so it can send 1 byte of data at a time. Okay. Suppose in case of 16-bit, it can send out. So what is the size of data to be sent out from the data bus? The size of data bus is 16. So 16-bit data bus means it can send out 2 bytes of data at a time. So which is fast, that is which is twice as fast. So 8-bit means it can send out 8-bit data, that is 1 byte of data at a time. If in case of 16-bit data bus, it can send out 2 bytes at a time. Okay. So next one is the address bus. So more address bus available means the larger number of devices or memory locations can be addressed. For example, suppose if the bus size is 2 power of 16. Your address bus size is 16-bit address bus. So your processor is capable of addressing 2 power of 16 memory locations, or it's capable of addressing 2 power of 16 IO devices. So that is the concept. So more address bus available means the larger number of devices or memory locations can be addressed. So the number of locations with which a CPU can communicate is always equal to 2 power x. X represent number of address pins on the IC, number of address pins on the chip. So how do you identify how many locations exist inside the memory chip? Okay. So first, every memory chip contains 2 power of x locations, and each location contains y bits. So each location contains y bits. So where y is the number of data pins on the chip. So entire chip contains 2 power x into y. So for example, CPU with 16 address bit lines means it is able to address 2 power 16 or 64 KB of addressable memory. Here 2 power 16 is nothing but your 65536. So it's capable of addressing 64 KB addressable memory. Do you understand this? Do you understand? Yes or no? So your number of locations is always equal to 2 power x. X is nothing but your address line. Y is nothing but your data pins on the chip. Okay. So entire chip contains 2 power x into y bits. So coming to this problem, the memory given here is 80K RAM. So you have to identify how many address lines required for accessing the data. Okay. Your data bus size is 8-bit. Please note it down. You have to identify how many address lines required for accessing data in 8 kilobytes RAM, and your data bus size is 8-bit. For example, if your address pin, number of address pin is 10 means it is capable of addressing 1 kilobytes of addressable memory or 1 kilobytes of memory locations. And next 2 power 11 means 2 kilobytes of addressable memory up to 20. 20 means 2 power 20 is equal to, it is capable of addressing 1 megabytes of addressable memory. So find out memory capacity and memory organization. For 8K RAM, how many address lines are required? Please tell me how many address lines are required for 8K RAM. See, do you understand? The problem given is your memory size is 8K RAM. You have to identify how many address lines required for accessing this memory based on this table and find out the memory capacity of this particular IC. So what is the answer? 2 power 13 is the right answer. So your memory capacity, so your memory capacity 2 power 13, 2 power 13 into what is the size of your data bits? 8. So this is your memory capacity of this particular RAM. 2 power 13 into 8. So memory organization is nothing but 8K into 8 bits. So 8K is the addressable memory. 8 is the size of your data bus. In this way, we can identify the number of address lines required for accessing the data in RAM or ROM. You understand? Any doubts? Students, any doubts? So 3 important components in terms of your architecture: CPU, memory, and peripheral. And your out of these 3 bus, your address bus and data bus determines the capability of your CPU. So your processing power of computer is something related to your data bus, and your address bus is for mainly for addressing your memory location. So the number of locations is equal to 2 power of x. X is nothing but total number of address lines on the memory chip. So the entire chip contains 2 power x into y. X is the address pins, total number of address pins. Y is the size of your data bus. And next, the difference between microprocessor and microcontroller. Any idea? Microprocessor between microcontroller? So why are we multiplying this 8? 8 is nothing but, so according to this formula, entire chip is equal to 2 power x into y. So your address line 2 power 13 into 8 bits, your size of your data bus. Is it clear now? Rohit, is it clear? Your representation, memory representation is 2 power x into y. X is the total number of address pins. Y is the size of your data bus. So your address bus and data bus will determine the capacity or capability of your processing capability of your processor or microcontroller. So what is the main difference between processor and controller? Please tell me. See, you can unmute yourself. Students, please interact with me. What is the difference between microprocessor? Microcontroller interface all external components with itself. Good. Microprocessor, we have to attach external. So this is the difference. The main thing is microprocessors are generally mainly used for general purpose application, not for specific application. Your CPU is standalone. Your designer has to connect the external component. In case of microcontroller, it is designed for a specific application. So everything, all your external components are integrated on a single chip. Okay. So according to this diagram, so your microprocessor meet general purpose processor such as example, that is your Intel x86 family. Already you have studied 8086 processor architecture or Motorola family. So these microprocessor contains no RAM, no ROM, IO port, timer on the chip itself. So this is a standalone CPU. Based on application, your designer or programmer have to interconnect these components externally. So your system designer must add RAM, ROM, IO port, timer, and serial communication port externally to make them functional. So that is the important thing in microprocessor. So although the addition of external components make these system bulkier and much more expensive. But in case of, but the important advantage of this microprocessor is designer or programmer can decide on the amount of your memories, the RAM and ROM we can decide, okay, and also the size of the IO ports. But in case of your microprocessor, your processor, RAM, ROM, IO port, timer, and serial communication port are all embedded together on a single chip. Okay. So it has a CPU in addition to fixed amount of RAM, ROM, IO ports, and timer all on single chip. So the drawback here is fixed amount of on-chip RAM and ROM IO ports. So which is the cost effective one, microprocessor or microcontroller? So according to this structure, which is cost effective? So which one is the cost effective? Very good. Microcontroller is the cost effective because in case of microcontroller, we have to add additional components. Okay. And this is for general purpose application and microcontroller is for specific application. So please note down the difference between your microprocessor, simple differences between microprocessor and microcontroller. Please note it down. So first point is your CPU is standalone in microprocessor. So your CPU is standalone, but in the case of microcontroller, all are on a single chip. Students, please make a note of it. It's a very important thing in the first unit. All are on a single chip. And second point, microprocessor used for general purpose application, microcontroller for specific application. Third one, in microprocessor, designer can decide on the amount of ROM, RAM, and IO ports. Designer can decide on the amount of ROM, RAM, and IO ports. So in case of microcontroller, RAM, ROM memory size is fixed. The size of RAM and ROM is fixed. And fourth one, microprocessors are expensive. Microcontrollers are cost effective. So which one requires more components? That is more hardware. Which one requires more hardware? Microprocessor. That is the difference. Your microprocessor based system requires more hardware. Microcontroller, less hardware. So which one is flexible in the design point of view? Which one is flexible in the design point of view? No, microprocessor is more flexible because we can fix the amount of RAM and ROM memory. So more flexible in the design point of view. But in the case of microcontroller, less flexible. So these are the main differences between microprocessor and microcontroller. Actually, criteria for next one is the criteria for choosing a microcontroller. Actually, there are 4 8-bit microcontrollers. One is Freescale microcontroller, that is 6811, Intel 8051, ZIT, and PIC microchip technology. So 4 8-bit microcontrollers are available. So each of these microcontroller has a unique instruction set, unique architecture, and unique register set. So there are not compatible with each other. So in case of programming, the program written for one microcontroller will not run on the another microcontroller. And there are also 16-bit, 13-bit microcontrollers are available nowadays. So out of these, what criteria we have to, what parameters we have to think of in choosing your microcontroller. So 3 important points. First one is the meeting the computing needs. Second one, availability of your software and development tools. And third one is the wide availability and reliable sources of microcontroller. So these 3 criteria are used in choosing your microcontroller. That is whether it may be 8-bit microcontroller or 16-bit microcontroller or 32-bit microcontroller. So speed means what is the highest speed that microcontrollers support. In case of amount means the size of your RAM and ROM memory. And packaging is nothing but your, does it come in a 40-pin DIP or QFB, that is quad flat package. So this is important in terms of space, assembling and prototyping the end products. And main important thing is power consumption. So this especially critical for battery powered products. So power consumption parameter is very important. And how easy to upgrade to improve the performance or lower the power consumption. So that is the important factor. And the final one is the cost power unit. So these 3 are under this category, meeting the computing needs. And next one, availability of software in terms of assembler, debugger, or integrated development environment, emulators and simulator. And third important thing is wide availability and reliable sources of microcontroller. See, in case of 8051, it has a largest number of suppliers. For example, Intel, Atmel, Philips, AMD. So these are the manufacturers of microcontrollers. So we have to check whether it is available widely or not. So these 3 criteria have to be considered for choosing your microcontroller. And important next thing is architecture. So before before we starting our 8051 architecture, these 2 is very important for understanding your 8051 microcontroller. So there are basically 2 types of digital computer architecture. One is the von Neumann, other one is the hardware architecture. Your 8051 follows hardware architecture. Okay, so we will see one by one. In case of von Neumann, what is von Neumann system or machine means? The computer has single storage, single memory for storing data as well as your programs to be executed. So this memory holds both data and the code to be executed. Here, your processor needs 2 clock cycle to execute a single instruction. Okay, so in the first cycle, processor gets the instruction from memory to this data bus. Okay, so actually the computer, the von Neumann means this particular computer has single storage for storing both data and code to be executed. And each processor needs 2 clock cycle to execute a single instruction. So first clock cycle, processor gets the instruction. So instructions are stored in memory. So first your processor gets the instruction from memory through this address bus and decoded. Okay. And after that second cycle, the required data is taken from the memory. So here data bus is used to get the data from the memory. So the data transfer and instruction set fetch must be scheduled here. Okay, they cannot be performed at the same time. So that is the important point involved in von Neumann architecture. Your data transfer and fetching instruction from the memory must be scheduled. That cannot be performed simultaneously. And also the important thing is pipelining is not at all possible with this machine are with this architecture. Okay, so your memory, that is single storage memory, which contains both your data and code to be executed. So it requires 2 clock cycles to complete the instruction. Second, in case of hardware architecture, this computer architecture has 2 separate memories, program memory and data memory, for storing your data and program. And your processor can complete instruction within 1 clock cycle. The reason is, if the appropriate pipelining strategies implemented, means it can complete the instruction within the 1 clock cycle. In case of pipelining, there are number of stages. Okay, so the first stage of pipeline, the instructions can be taken from program memory through address bus, and second stage of pipeline, the data is taken from the data memory using your data bus. So that is the difference between your von Neumann and hardware architecture. And your 8051 is based on this hardware architecture, that is separate memories are available in case of your 8051 architecture. Any doubts? Do you understand the difference between von Neumann and hardware architecture? So von Neumann means it's a single storage. Hardware means it's consisting of 2 memory elements for storing your both data and address. Okay. That is depend. Which one is better? That is depends on your application, madam. Actually, your latest ARM processors are based on von Neumann. That is based on your space, power consumption. Designer can decide the architecture. So both are advantages only. So next important thing is tri-state buffer. Actually, the tri-state logic, that is very important concept in studying your microcontroller. Actually, all the devices used in microprocessor or microcontroller system uses tri-state logic. Actually, it consisting of 3 states. In case of your digital electronics, we have only 2 states, either on or off. But here, the tri-state logic devices have 3 states: logic 0, logic 1, and high impedance state. So all the devices are configured as tri-state devices. It consisting of 3 states: logic 0, logic 1, and high impedance state. So 3 states. So the high and low are normal logic levels, and this is different. High impedance is the difference. So the high impedance means the electrical open circuit condition. So open circuit condition, it is provided to keep the device electrically isolated from the system, which means that the device is physically connected but electrically isolated. Okay, high impedance state means it is an open circuit condition. The whatever devices are connected to the microprocessor are physically connected, electrically isolated. That is, the pins are physically connected in the system but electrically isolated. So in this state, actually in this high impedance state, they cannot receive or send any signals or any information. So these devices are provided with one signal that is called enable signal, that is chip select signal. So your high impedance state or logic 0 and logic 1 depends on this enable. Okay. So when this enable line is according to this diagram, this is a buffer. So buffer means just transferring the data from input to output without any processing. So without any processing, just it transfers the data from input to output. And the operation is completely based on this enable line. So this enable line is activated means this function, that is this device function like a ordinary logic device. Okay. Do you understand? This enable line is activated. This device buffer function like a ordinary logic device. So your output is 0 means, input is 0 means your output will be 0. your input is 1 means your output will be 1. So when the line is activated, it behaves like a ordinary logic device. If the line is disabled, the logic device is in high impedance state. Okay. So this buffer is the active high buffer. So what is the meaning of this active high buffer? And this is active low buffer. So analyze these two diagrams and what is the difference between active high and active low? Please tell me. What is the difference between active low and active high based on these two diagrams? PPT is not visible. Now visible? Indu? Is it visible, Indu? No.
No, ma'am.
The problem is, I think, problem is in your side. Remaining students, can everyone see the slides? Okay, the active low. What is active low? The bit will be generated. Active low, the bit get complemented. Okay, enable line is inverted. So active high means if the signal is high means, that is if your signal is equal to 1 means this particular pin is activated. Okay. This enable line is, sorry. The enable line is one means this signal is activated. Okay. If enable line is 0 means the particular enable pin is activated. 1 means deactivated. Do you understand now? If the buffer is active high buffer, if the enable line is equal to 1 means the enable pin is activated, otherwise deactivated. In case of active low buffer, if the enable line is, that is enable signal is equal to 0 means this particular pin is activated. Just complement operation. Okay. Do you understand this? This is correct. Enable line is inverted in active low buffer. Okay. So this is your active high buffer. Enable is high, input and output. Okay. So the first combination, your enable is 1, input is 0. So what will be the output? What will be the output for this one? What will be the output? 0. Okay. So your output is 0. Output is 0. Next 1, 1. Output is 1. Your enable line is deactivated here. So that case, your output is in high impedance state. That is physically connected, electrically isolated. That state is called floating state. That state is called floating state. Do you understand now? Yes or no? Do you understand the table? Tri-state logic table. So 1 means the particular enable pin is activated, high. So it acts like a ordinary logic device. So whatever you are giving here, that will be reflected in the output pin. So 0 means your output will be 0. 1 means your output will be 1. But in case of enable signal is equal to 0, that case it is in high impedance state. It is physically connected, electrically disconnected. So at this state, it cannot send or receive any information. Okay. So next one, just you complete this table and tell me the answer. 0, 0, 0. It's an active low buffer. Here the pin is inverted. 0, 0. What is the output? What is the output? 0. Okay. 0. 1. So here deactivated. So it is in high impedance state. That is in floating state. So this high impedance state is called floating state. Okay. Do you have any doubts? So next class we will see about 8051 computer architecture, the 8051 architecture diagram. That is block diagram of 8051. Okay. Any doubts? So this class we have discussed about your basic computer organization block diagram. That is about your CPU, peripheral device and memory, and along with your address data bus and control bus, and also the memory locations, the address lines required for accessing memory locations, and difference between microprocessor and microcontroller, and tri-state logic. So next class we will see about your architecture, 8051 architecture. Any clarifications? Okay, okay, ma. Thank you.